є стихи не видержати, це просто така кількість інформаційного потоку.
Звичайно. Все, можемо починати? Вітаю, друзі! Ми починаємо нашу конференцію, наше обговорення. Називається воно «Результати глобального індексу оборонних компаній» програми Transparency International Defense and Security, і представляє сьогодні цей надважливий індекс Незалежний антикорупційний комітет з питань оборони НАКО. Я думаю, що не потрібно пояснювати, чому ця тема надважлива і чому ця тема надважлива для нашої країни. Трохи статистики, наприклад, у 2000 трильйонів доларів. І, звичайно, ми всі розуміємо, що оборонна промисловість є такою мішенню для якихось оборудок через кількість залучених грошей, через оборонні контракти, в тому числі надсекретність цієї сфери із зрозумілих причин.
Over secrecy of this field, defense and security in Ukraine face huge problems. So for the 7th year in a row, Ukraine finds itself in a conflict. And starting with the occupation of Crimea, we experience nearly the 8th year that Donbass faces a military conflict. And as of that time, the defense has lost its value in this country. Today, we would like to present DCI ranking where 134 global defense companies participated. This is the ranking that was generated by Transparency International that handles defense and security issues. And at that, I would like to introduce participants of this conference today, since at present we're going to cover the online points that serve as a basis for generating this index. And in Ukraine, we have only one defense company, that is Ukroboronprom, that was ranked under this index in this country. From the point of needs that were spotted, we need to single out corporate governance transformations that yet were up when the institution of governmental machinery started many years ago. And for now, I would like to introduce participants of the current debate. Mrs. Natalie Hogg, that's Director of Transparency International Defense and Security. Mrs. Olena Tregup, Executive Director of Transparency of NAKO. Then the next is Svetlana Panayotide, that also runs Ukroboronprom's operations. She's Deputy Head of the Ministry of Economy of Ukraine. And the next speaker is Mr. Roman Bondarev, First Deputy Director of Ukroboronprom. In a few minutes, CEO of Ukroboronprom, Mr. Gusov, will join us, and we would like to hear him in person so that we could draw up conclusions on what is going on in the company and around the company at present. And Mr. Kalitenko, legal advisor of Transparency International, will summarize what we can observe around this field. At that, I would like to pass the floor to Mrs. Natalie Hogg, that was accountable for generating DCI, and that I would like to pass the floor to Natalie. Natalie, can you hear us well?
Is that me now? I'm afraid I've just lost all sound. Can you hear me? I don't know whether anybody can hear me.
Все чудово.
Well, it's fine. Please continue.
Is that for me to start now? Can people hear me? I've lost all sound.
Так.
Yes, please go on. Natalie, it's your turn. Yes, please.
Можете сказати, звичайно, так.
Yes, please start. Please go ahead.
I don't know if I've got the, yes.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Can you hear me, Charlie? Yeah, okay. So apologies for that. I've just lost all sound. My name's Natalie Hogg. I'm the director for the Defence and Security Programme at Transparency International, which is a global programme run on behalf of the Transparency International movement. It's housed in London, but with staff in the US and in Europe as well. So I'm here to present the Defence Companies Index to you and what it is and what it aims to do. So the full name, the Defence Companies Index on Anti-Corruption and Corporate Transparency, is the world's leading assessment of anti-corruption transparency in defence companies. It's the third index that we've produced, and it focuses on companies operating in the defence sector. Although what's important is that due to significant changes in the aim, focus and methodology and question set of the 2020 index, any comparison with previous indices is not possible or appropriate. So the index assesses levels of public commitment to anti-corruption and transparency in the corporate policies and procedures of 134 of the world's largest defence companies. And by analysing what companies are publicly committing to in terms of their openness, policies and procedures, the index seeks to inspire reform in the defence sector, thereby reducing corruption and its negative impacts. So in reviewing company materials, we assess the completeness and accessibility of the information to promote transparency as an essential tool to mitigate corruption risks. The index sets good practice for openness in the defence sector and beyond. It provides a framework of good practice and standards of anti-corruption transparency of policies and procedures. In addition to defence-specific risks, the index sets clear standards that are equally relevant in other sectors, including issues such as internal investigations, whistleblowing, political contributions and lobbying. Each assessment can therefore be used to identify topics or control mechanisms where transparency is lacking and provide a framework for change. So what the index doesn't do is important. It is not a measurement of corruption, nor is it a substitute for internal audit. It doesn't provide a measurement of the most or least corrupt companies, nor does it indicate that those with a high commitment to transparency are free from corruption, or vice versa. It focuses solely on information that companies make available in the public domain. It therefore doesn't try to provide a comprehensive overview of all components of the defence company's internal compliance programme or its effectiveness. So, why should companies care about transparency? So there's a global drive going on towards open businesses, and many companies recognise the benefits of corporate transparency in terms of improving trust, reputation, compliance and competitive advantage. Corporate transparency can build public, investor and employee trust by allowing information to be reviewed by key stakeholders, suppliers, shareholders, enforcement agencies, employees and the public at large. It can create collective benchmarking and bring about action. It can set standards for the sector, facilitate sharing and learning and resources to support collective action. It means a company can be in charge of its own information. Without demonstrating what might already be happening internally, people will make their own assumptions which affect the reputation of a company. Importantly, it can mitigate business-to-business risk by setting expectations on the company's standards for anyone wishing to engage with a particular company. Could be prospective employees, customers, suppliers. It shows how a company intends to work. It can improve scrutiny and quality of policies by leveraging a public process to create internal momentum and change. And it can help to hold governments to account because it allows oversight bodies such as parliaments, external auditors, and ultimately the public to hold governments to account. So what impact have we seen so far with the index? In the process of doing the research, many companies have engaged with us to improve the transparency of their public information about their anti-corruption programs and efforts. The process and methodological revisions have raised new topics with the industry and started discussions on how to improve sectoral standards in several high-risk business areas. For UOP specifically, UOP provided feedback on the draft version of their assessment, which helped to identify changes to their publicly available information, and in turn highlighted some areas of positive improvement. After the incorporation of this feedback into the assessment, UOP's overall score improved by 19%. So that's the top lines of who we are, what the index is about, what it does and it doesn't do, and why we think it's important. And I will bring it to a close now and be very happy at the end to take any questions. I've also got Charlotte Linney on the phone, who is has played a lead role in putting this research together and is very well versed in the technical aspects of the assessments. Thank you very much.
Наталі, будемо рухатися далі.
Thank you, Natalie, for your input. Now we are going to advance. Later we will have some opportunity to pose questions to Mrs. Hogg, Mrs. Elena Trigup, Executive Director of NAKO. As far as I know, Mrs. Trigup and NAKO co-function for 5 years for now, and quite a lot has been achieved in terms of promoting reforming of Ukroboronprom in Ukraine. Ukroboronprom, as of 2016, when NAKO was set up, to some extent was a mimic to windmills. Do you think that the situation has changed, and how would you characterize the role of Ukroboronprom in this? Can you see any progress so far? Hello, everyone. Greetings. Good afternoon. Thank you for your question, Sylvia. I would like to recognize changes that are on the way, and positive outcome of these changes can be read through this index. I would like to reiterate that Ukroboronprom was assessed in 2015, where it gained 0 score, and before concentrating on reform, on vision of NAKO, how the reform will develop further on, I would like to go in deeper detail while explaining the implications of this index, what blocks can we assess through reading underlying issues in this methodology. How does this methodology impact the performance of the enterprise at present, and how it can project positive effect for the enterprise in the future? It goes without saying that defense is a huge sector, huge amounts have been involved. Approximately $2 trillion were raised to enhance the performance of this enterprise and for raising openness and transparency of the global biggest defense operators. I would like to state that there is such a scheme around this scoring that involves ranking from A through F. A belongs to the best companies at that time having the highest risk in corruption. A has the best score, while E proves that the company was the worst in this ledger. 98% of enterprises that were ranked DEF belong to those that have low level of transparency and anti-corruption fight. Ukroboronprom belongs today to the third group. We examined the best of the West rankings, and it was interesting to get that Leonardo, as per Italy, became a leader. It is indeed very transparent, and it highlights much information on its website. Raytheon Technologies from the United States of America that produces javelins that are famous in Ukraine had 85 scores. So it's interesting to stress that while NAKO consulted Ukroboronprom, they invited Raytheon, former consultant of the company, and it's not that difficult to see that they are indeed prominent from the point of being successful in anti-corruption fight. And the Stava Arms from the United States has two. That's not such a big score, and that proves successful. For the Ukrainian enterprises, as I have already mentioned, that out of the Ukrainian defense companies in 2015, the state enterprise Antonov was evaluated, and actually it gained F and 0 scores, and it was impossible to track how anti-corruption fight was carried out inside of this defense enterprise. After analysis of websites and policies that Ukroboronprom is governed by, it gained 112 scores, and it was ranked as E, having 28. But from the global point, that's already a success. If to dwell on standalone blocks, what matters is management and organizational structure. They normally will check whether management of the company is today monitored by anti-corruption control authority, whether ethics and effectiveness surveillance are in place, and whether comprehensive policy for anti-corruption fight is deployed. Ukroboronprom has a very high level of that, and our colleagues has assessed that the top leadership is monitored by anti-corruption control authority quite effectively. For internal control, I would like to state that moderate ranking is granted for anti-corruption program that today circulates inside the country. I would like to say that it has been recognized as available, but yet whether it works or not and how well this system proves and whether the communication works well remain questions, since the law enforcement bodies should be informed properly in case of incidents are spotted. For high risk market risk, that limited level of success can be seen through the lines, since because of some corruption risk at these markets that have corruption as an endemic feature, where you will not be able to find any information on contracts, UBOs, and these companies that Ukroboronprom works with. I would like to state that this question normally will be advanced not that much to state enterprise that Ukroboronprom is, but rather to regulators, how well export specifically is being regulated at present, how close to or otherwise it appears to be, and unless we reach common language this domain, we will not be able ultimately to find solution for the support of employees, namely trainings, ethics, corporate ethics, and understanding of ethics code, anti-corruption policy. How well the employees are good at that is an issue, and how well whistleblowing policy is recognized by personnel is also an open thing to discuss more. And I would like to state that the employees should be invited to broader discussion on that. Another block is a conflict of interest, and specifically what they evaluated that is sufficiency procedures that secure care and troubleshooting, tracking conflict of interest in transactions. This block was not outlined in the respective procedures, and in the current regulations it is under described. I would like to say that Svetlana will be more informed on this issue, and she'll tell us about reform that will unveil how to prevent intrusion into transparency of advancing and appointing members of the supervisory board. And speaking about supervisory board, most probably you will get to know better from Svetlana how this happens. And today all these issues and all these movements are underway, and at that I will not concentrate on management and leadership, their roles and interplay, interaction. I would like to state that Ukroboronprom received low recognition. At this level, there should be some policy to Ukroboronprom regarding charities and political contributions, facilitation contributions as well, facilitation fees, whether Ukroboronprom can get or can present someone a gift for some services, for instance, or for promoting itself for the market. And there was also some investigation conducted whether Ukroboronprom preserves making it public whether these contributions are made, is my understanding proves. Ukroboronprom never gets from outside. Actually, all the gifts, if once granted, will be reflected in financials, agents, intermediaries, and joint ventures. Also, were marked as very low. Rather, there is some support for intermediaries in this enterprise, and following these journalistic investigations that were conducted prove that Ukroboronprom could be even much more better if they could undertake another effort to improve pertinent procedures. And the last but not least block is offset arrangements. That we would like to raise such an issue as offset transactions where commitments are offset among operators. And again, it's not that much about Ukroboronprom specifically, or defense enterprises, or other operators servicing the field. Well, quite a lot should be scrutinized to be able to find sound judgments. For that, in NAKO, we have been working with Ukroboronprom for 3 years on end, and it cost us a big effort to improve and polish the current indices. We can recognize that the corporate governance reform is underway, and once we have new legislation in place, where fully-fledged supervisory board will be appointed and will function as a company that will serve as a substitute for the current Ukroboronprom, and we would like to have more non-executive directors at that enterprise where no governmental officers, civic servants, top officials could intrude into the operations of such a defense operator. And Ukroboronprom will then bring into law all the standards that it already wants in this field for the transformations. I would like to state that we facilitated through the elaboration of the ethics code and other bylaws that turned out to be indeed very good for its performance from the point of procurement, for instance, that appeared to be even more transparent than ever before. And there are more strides in this respect that can be recognized as positive. Many thanks, Elena, for your input. We will have another step to succeed, and that I would like to invite Mr. Gusev, CEO of Ukroboronprom. As far as I know, it is the fourth CEO of this enterprise that have rotated as of 2014, and today we would like to touch upon the necessity of rotation of CEOs and leadership changes. Most probably, I will not be wrong saying that it's not yet a 100-day anniversary that Yuri has been chairing this enterprise. Yuri, how will you assess the deliverables that we can read through the lines of getting such a good recognition in DCI rankings? What hinders the consortium to become more transparent and successful? Many thanks for your question, Savelia. I would like to say that trust, as my hope has it, will not be exhaustive. For the most recent years, what I can spot is a growing trust towards what we do. If I will go back to what Elena said, I will not be wrong saying that Ukroboronprom today receives the highest recognition even to assess what we can read in the historical chronicles of its performance. Today we have lots of things to assess after the evaluation was conducted and the ethics code was elaborated jointly with NAKO, and we launched internal compliance procedures to see how well the consortium functions, and I'm confident that the upcoming steps for Ukroboronprom that today proves ultimately most successful if to compare its precedent scores, has proved that it's not that easy and rather complicated to bring into life the corporate governance reform for the enterprise in question. In this conference room today, we saw that it was indeed a huge successful step ahead. There was a standalone decree bill issued 3834 that regulates all the strategic documents enshrining key requirements that we set out in the regulations governing performance of the enterprise. Today, we expect that the second reading will be done, and it is the last day of this Friday that the proposals on amendments for the Law Committee at the Ukrainian Parliament to watch and see what can be done about the enterprise to raise its effectiveness. And later this February, if not this February, then in March this year, as far as we are convinced, the President of Ukraine, Mr. Zelensky, will sign off for pertinent regulation where it will be stipulated that Ukroboronprom that was set up by Yanukovych yet in 2013 will stop its functioning. In that organization form that Mr. Yanukovych approved, and at that we would like to invite everyone to participate in revision and amendments, other deliberations towards improving the current bill 3822, since that bill proves indeed very looming, and if we do not enter pertinent and proper amendments at the moment, then I do not know how soon we will be able to get back to the bill that was a fruit of multiple effort and much time. And I would like to say that many MPs were involved, and today we have huge work on the way. We're indeed convinced that the bill that gained 220 votes in its first reading should be supported in the future. And again, I would like to say that we should work even more and better for that bill in the second reading to be able to get even more votes and the corporate governance reform to become even better. From the point of effectiveness of the state defense sector in Ukraine, that's what we basically need at present, and what my team is after at the moment is success in all the effort undertaken at present. Mr. Zelensky and the team that has been approved by Mr. Zelensky set out, four of them, the aim of promoting the consortium that was set up in 2010 to make the current holding that is being reformed will be able to win first A or B leading lines, and it will be indeed very good from the point of anti-corruption fight and transparency, from the point of getting modern, better quality arms, so that we could strengthen better our position in the external markets. Yuri, thank you very much for your input. There is little time left. I would like to reiterate that you will be able to pose more questions after the reports of our participants. And as far as I know, there is unfortunately no connection with Mr. Natalie Hogg, the head of the line committee at the Ukrainian Parliament, that could tell us more about how this bill has been advanced in the Ukrainian Parliament. But we have Svetlana Panayotite, that's Deputy Minister for Economic Development and Trade of Ukraine, that is at present and as of middle of 2019 has been working over for not only reforming 15 state enterprises, state-owned enterprises, but also Ukroboronprom specifically. What about the corporate governance reform, transparency reform in the long run? Do you think that it's necessary, taking that new ministries and new governmental offices have been appointed and set up? What movements would you single out as positive at that? Dear colleagues, hello everyone. I would like to split my speech into a few blocks, being accountable for the state property and the governmental reform, corporate governance reform, specifically for SOEs. I would like to state that this is a need at present, since the government and the state as an owner of state-owned enterprises should see their roles quite clearly, where the supervisory board could have better understanding of what it has to do in its role, while the government should have better understanding of what it has to do, and the state will remain a monopolist there. And this is indeed very important for the effectiveness of the corporate governance and for eliciting any risk of political pressure. For the bill that Mr. Gusev mentioned today, number 3822, I myself have not yet seen these amendments, but these amendments should streamline the current version, and this is crucial for everyone. And at that I would like to get back to transparency in bulk. In defense, I would like to make discrete distinctions, saying that Ukroboronprom today has to develop secondary legislation to bring into life key law. And as of the moment when we started deliberating this bill, I would like to recognize that power of our judgments will be decisive from the point of revolutionary nature of this bill. For the legislation, a newly set up ministry in the defense sector is accountable for new changes. In July 2020, and today we live in the age of 2021. And I should recognize high record of indeed very close ties where interaction was nearly perfect since access to information was open, and all the proposals were discussed absolutely in an open manner, and it doesn't really matter whether it gets about private governmental participation, let's say, be it private or public sector, that will not even matter. But what we should focus on is proper understanding of who should be accountable for what. And what's indeed critical is that, in fact, the document that we jointly elaborate today, we should agree on what we're going to develop and what is to be done to make the current system better. From the report that Olena has done, I shouldn't say that everything looks absolutely beautiful, but we do all what we can. And from the legislative point of view, openness and transparency, there was indeed a quantum jump, so to speak, made, but we cannot help but recognize that the current team initiates communication with the law enforcement bodies. They develop jointly such policies and roadmaps that prevent any conflict of interest, and they do it all to make it fast. Since for the majority, this is a major hurdle, and from the point of cooperating with the state enterprises, corruption today proves the top risk. And I would like to extend my gratitude to Mr. Gusev for his contribution and his team for their participation in betterment of culture, standards and norms. And for the norms and culture, it's indeed very hard to change anything in this country, since it's all about the remnants of the Soviet times, where normally the personnel and partners demand some assignment or purchase order for 5 years at minimum, since they have stuck to model of a 5-year plan, and we cannot secure profiling the business. We cannot ensure that the enterprises that work with the public sector will be able to optimize what they do, that they can profile their operations and plan use of resources properly. And from the point, for instance, use of leased areas, you can read all this things online, and speaking about Prozora online, this is openness of procurement. And I would like to say that for the time being, we haven't yet spotted any conflict of interest. And let's learn to be grateful, to thank this who are around us for their work. Let's rejoin each around us in gratitude for all the effort and contribution made into this hard work indeed. That's essential. If to underline the key messages that for this debited amounts, I shouldn't say that we have completed the work. They are for the strategic documents. They ask for more pace and better contact with the state, and that we need to receive better, stringent instructions that could be deeper spelled out and again broad explained. We need to have a proper deadline, smart goals, and other words where there will be proper understanding of deadlines, then measurement methodologies, where to focus our resource on, and what is to be done with the current pool of assignments. Ukroboronprom cannot unfortunately cope with these tasks that are set out for us. That's about the state and this in power that should involve even broader circles of participants, since while we discuss, let's say, state purchase orders. There used to be only 6% of state stakeholders. Today we have 36% of stakeholders in this interaction. That's already an achievement. Mr. Gusev says that President today addresses huge attention, and we're indeed grateful to him for that, for the reform of Ukroboronprom that's being underway, and for the share of Ukroboronprom in the reforming process of Ukraine as a state generally. There is one priority left. What is to be done around the SOEs and external markets? What is to be done for the Ukrainian operators to become more effective and more recognized? For the bill that has provisions to regulate interaction of state enterprise with the MPs, I should say that everyone who can hear us now, I would like to call you upon calling your MPs and asking them to vote for this bill. So it's not only a line bill, it's also a bill of strategic importance for everyone in this country. At that, dear all, I would like to add a few more comments that reforming is a very big part of changes in this country. The second is procurement, and for privatization there are some strategic enterprises, strategic units, apart from all other entities on the privatization list. I would like to say that for the staff of our review, we remain open, available to discussion of all the deliverables and outcomes of our effort. Thank you very much, Svetlana, for your contribution. Unfortunately, we're not successful in connecting with Mr. Natalie Hogg. We can make an attempt and try and reach him by his cell phone, and for Dmitry, I would like to note that we'll keep trying, and there's a hope that we'll be able to reach him in the end by phone, and that will ring him up eventually. And at that, I would like to ask Mr. Alexander, counsel to Transparency International, and challenge him on the rise of Ukraine in Transparency International rankings. For the years that DCI index functions under TIDS umbrella, I should say that this evaluation has been quite successful indeed, but if for the value, how would you comment on value of DCI and representation of Ukraine among all these companies that were sourced for the evaluation committee? Ukraine scored 32, where 100 score means no corruption, and Ukraine gained 3 scores over the last year. And for the recommendations that Transparency Ukraine, Transparency International Ukraine issues annually, I would like to state that they included reform of state enterprises, state-owned enterprises, public sector, and privatization. But unfortunately, state-owned enterprises today remain one of the corruption sources, and the National Anti-Corruption Bureau not once but does remind us all on this misfortune. Unfortunately, all these countries and operators that score low are perceived normally as corrupt, and there is unbalanced division of power. And today you can see how these operators in defense, for instance, can be attached to political leverages or some oligarchic or monopolistic forces and movements. And speaking about unbiased attitude, I would like to state that the countries that prove to be very low in corruption, they have nearly eradicated in its root corruption, and that is the reason why they are recognized as reliable partners. Under the EU-Ukraine association agreement, I would like to note that in such reforms as corporate governance reform, for instance, there will be well-conditioned and aligned effort in advance and progress of this reform. If we look to the West, how well the Western operators managed to resolve these problems, what is accounted in this index, I would like to state that the ethics code and supported to whistleblowers, since up to 40% of all incidents are normally spotted by whistleblowers inside companies, thanks to the effort and vigilance of whistleblowers, proves that changes are a must. For a position of a compliance officer, this is also a necessity, since there should be some standalone appointment that will be in charge of all these commitments. And for the state, there should be no restrictions for this position, but for declaring when goes about SOEs, when e-declarations are submitted online, where, again, good skills of Ukrainian are required, since in case when some employee of a state-owned enterprise doesn't master Ukrainian properly and he can misread or misspell something in a Ukrainian e-declaration, that can be, again, another obstacle for those employees that can be admitted to an enterprise. Therefore, at the very entrance stage, we should see to it that all the restrictions are set out clearly on who to admit to state-owned enterprise. There is also another very good practice among best available techniques that before stepping on this route, all the employees should learn what is envisaged in their terms of references and key bylaws of or regulations or any standards that can be relevant to the job in question at a state-owned enterprise, so that practically these people could not be lost later on. And at that, I would like to state that this should become a part of a corporate culture where there will be no possibility of acquiring this into their corporate culture, where zero tolerance to corruption should be developed through the participation of training agencies and whistleblowers to consider their role. That should be another domain to entertain, and that should be seen to scrutinize. And for us, transparency of financials yet in 2019 proves that there were some problems in place, and Ukroboronprom had a chance of becoming a star at the backdrop of other participants. And we do hope that what we could hear as declarations today will push us further on. Unfortunately, we couldn't reach Mr. Natalie Hogg, and bless him. Yes, now we have Dmitro. Hello, greetings. Today we talked a lot about a new bill that will advance to a large extent effectiveness of Ukroboronprom. Speaking about Ukroboronprom and its destiny, so to speak, plight, if I can. How would you comment on that? I would like to say that I will not take much of your time, but next time when the committee is called up, bankruptcy procedure will be up due to on the performance of non-executive directives inclusive. Speaking about support of the Parliament, I'm not confident that in reading one we were very successful. We could have done better. But for the supervisory boards, we have 6 or 7 bills that are attached to reform of corporate governance, and we will elaborate even more proposals for more fractions and MPs. And we can achieve even such an approach that will allow to look at another angle at SOEs. The same goes about reforming our space. We have been working hard, and corporatization of infrastructure also is, as well as big strategic operators that demand corporatization will aim to approach crystallization of these procedures in one final document. But speaking about one comprehensive framework, the next objective is to set up a new parliamentarian subcommittee and corporatization of pertinent parliamentarian bodies. Dmitros, thank you very much. Thank you that you have joined us online. We have a few minutes left. We have a few speakers left that will speak out later on DCI and corporatization of Ukroboronprom. You can raise your hand and ask us more questions should they arrive along the avenue. I've got a question for Yuri Gusev. What challenges do you have at present? What stages are upcoming and how fast that will be brought into life? And what priorities will set out? At present, we're awake at elaboration more of Bill 3822 for the defense and security sector. I would like to call upon everyone to reach out to the MPs, asking them to support this bill, since reforming Ukroboronprom is very complicated. On December 21, I signed off regulation on corporatization of these units that are constituents of Ukroboronprom, a state-owned enterprise. And it will be indeed important after a resolution on transformation of Ukroboronprom and after a multitude of resolutions are made, will be able to make the bill 3822 even more successful, and the second reading of the same bill will be even more effective. The plan that we have a road map that has been elaborated, and I have addressed Mr. Zelensky and Mr. Danilov, that's chair of the National Security and Defense Council, to look into the document that I would like to see as an instruction for everyone. And after pertinent meetings, we will wait for the new tasks to arrive, and we will have a timeline of 6 to 9 months to transform the consortium into a very effective system of holdings, and we have been working very effectively to be able to achieve high result of that. Thank you. Lena, would you like to add a thing?
Дійсно, законопроект 382 дуже важливий, але НАКО закликає слідкувати за тим, щоб там не відбулося грубого порушення стандартів ОСР, зокрема,
We look into preventing rude violation of standards for the property of shareholders, for instance.
йдеться про те, що Кабінет міністрів повинен залишати
It goes
власником акціонером, і це створить більш такі надійні умови, щоб запобігти політичному втручанню.
this will produce new conditions for depolitizing this dialogue. We have had it all. Thanks to journalists, thanks to Dmitro, who have talked to us online, by telephone also. And we'll expect the news to be even more positive, and see you later.